Okay, this is Yonner Joseph Hartkin Wasito. My capacity is a professor of English and economics at a MBA program at a school in South America, as well as for a veteran ventures MBA program at a nearby university here in San Diego, as well as for my nonprofit Danger Close Foundation, doing business as veteran legal services. So this brief class is on how I read The Economist. Okay, and the way that I read The Economist is with a mechanical pencil. The pen is mightier than the sword, and that is certainly true. I also read it with a Sharpie because at the end of the day, you need to be able to do work at a place like Home Depot, and you're always marking things with a Sharpie. And I also do it with a multi-tool, or my EDC everyday carry knife now is this beautiful SOG Trident, which again is a courtesy of Home Depot. The way I read The Economist, and the reason I read The Economist, first of all, is because it's it's the best global intelligence source, if you want to look at it in military terms or even in business terms, business intelligence, in the respect that I think that The Economist still has the best global reporting. And I say that because as a Marine officer, when I had to get ready to do a non-combatant evacuation operation, I did so by handing out physical copies of The Economist to my sergeants, because that was the best intel that we had on the location, which was Cambodia in 1993 on the 31st MEU. The way I read The Economist is, first of all, just to look at the cover and see how that fits into the global macro themes that I've been developing. Global macro theme, it's a way that a professional fund manager will talk about a viewpoint of the world. I'm a graduate of Harvard and, Stanford Law School, 3 classes at the business school, 4 classes on derivatives and portfolio management. And when you talk to other financial professionals, they'll say, hey, my global macro view is. Well, my global macro view in a brief summary is long SPY and short EEM. Now, what does that mean? Well, the S&P 500 is the 500 largest stocks in the United States stock market. EEM is the index of the emerging markets. And that includes the so-called BRICS, B-R-I-C, which is Brazil, Russia, India, and China. The global macro view that I have is long SPY, short EEM, because in January of 2018, the National Defense Strategy of the United States is now focused on great power competition. My view is that that is a direct result of a war for the global reserve currency, and the book you should look at there is Barry Eichengreen, Exorbitant Privilege, which says that the last time the global reserve currency shifted was between 1925 and 1956. And that shifted due to the Suez crisis, and the Suez Canal is right here. So what happened in 1956 is that the British asked the United States, specifically President Eisenhower, another great German-American president, for help, and Eisenhower said no. And when he said no, the global reserve currency became the US dollar, because it was clear that the United States military was the strongest in the world and had eclipsed the English Navy, British Navy. So, and that contest is what is going on now, because specifically Chinese civilization is attempting to remove the US dollar as the global reserve currency. China, in cooperation with 4 other near-peer national competitors, Brazil, Russia, especially Russia, India, are the major players. This term BRICS was coined by Goldman Sachs in about 2000 by the Goldman Sachs London office. And it was a way of selling a global macro view, which is that the BRICS are going to be the fastest growing developing economies, the emerging economies. Many times in the last 10 to 15 years, the term EEM has been argued to be out of date, and that it's not emerging, but it is emerged. They have, in fact, stepped onto the world stage. Obviously, here's China, and they have, in fact, used the Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom as a supporting attack to distract America, the biggest country in the Western cultural bloc, from the global threat. So, the topic of this cover of The Economist is Planet China, what to make of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative is how China is projecting power around the world through so-called Belt and Road Initiative, mainly by all kinds of economic development on the Indian Ocean. And for that, you should look at Robert Kaplan, Monsoon. Which I commend to you highly. The question is what to make of the Belt and Road Initiative, and the answer, strategically, from the standpoint of the West, for which I speak as a former Marine officer, and for which I am attempting to speak on behalf of our alliance with NATO, which is essentially the West. The answer from our perspective as the West, and this is kind of a memo to Secretary Mattis, my old boss in RCT 7, and his counterpart, Secretary Pompeo, a veteran who is the Secretary of State. The answer is veteran-owned businesses on a global scale that are projected out through the SJ, which is short for Society of Jesus, which is Jesuit schools. And again, the reason for looking at the Society of Jesus schools is, let's look at a map. Society of Jesus was founded here, which is Rome, where the first Jesuit in history is the Pope. And they projected out through the routes of Xavier, who sailed around here, to India. And now if you look at India, what you find is all of the mega cities, which are 10 million or more, have large Jesuit schools.